November. The daylight shrinks, the air cools, and some days it feels like someone's dimmed the switch on our energy. Is this just November, or is it something more? I want to start this episode by reminding you, even the brightest, most accomplished people can feel this shift in energy. You are not alone in the winter drain. And today, we're talking about seasonal affective disorder, what it does to energy, how to spot it, how to manage it, and how to watch for it in others, including children. Seasonal affective disorder gets shortened to SAD, and it is a real thing. It's a real and recognized form of seasonal depression on the scale that's used to classify depressive disorders, the DSM-5. The symptoms of SAD are more severe than the commonly cited winter blues, and SAD can genuinely significantly affect your daily functioning. Some of the classic signs of SAD are a persistent low mood, that loss of interest or pleasure in daily activities, a change in sleep, often actually oversleeping, a change in appetite, suddenly craving carbohydrates or sweets, difficulty concentrating, and feelings of hopelessness or worthlessness. And it can affect us all so differently. So some people don't feel all those effects, but within this change of the season, some people really do. The singer Adele, a regular listener, I'll have you know, she has cited before that she gets really bad seasonal depression. She says, the weather is good for me here when talking about her relocating to sunnier climes in Los Angeles. So what exactly is seasonal affective disorder, and how does it affect energy? And how would you know whether winter tiredness is more than just a seasonal slump? A 2025 study suggests some of us might be more susceptible to this than others. And this might lie in our genetic material with a gene called SLC20A2. You don't need to remember that. But this gene potentially increases your susceptibility to seasonal mood swings, or SAD. So it might not just be the environment, it might be that your biology is predisposing you to a difficult season. So for those of you who are thinking, this is just me being weak, everyone around me is doing okay, you might find some relief in knowing there is a biological component to this. I read just the other day that last year in Scotland, a council trialled wintering well boxes. And these were borrowable library boxes that contained light lamps. They contained information and activities to help individuals combat SAD in these darker months. And that solution gives us a clue to which element is the major contributor to seasonal affective disorder and winter blues. And it's light. Light in the fact it's present or absent, but light sits at the heart of this discussion. Before we start to unpick some solutions to this seasonal challenge, and no, it's not just moving to Dubai, as many of you might think, let's break down SAD with some simple science. The first thing we've got to consider is what is the biology of this condition, and it comes down to brain chemistry. The critical aspect to recall and remember is that our bodies run on this 24-hour clock or circadian rhythm, and this sleep-wake cycle is embedded into a clock in all the cells in our human machine. It's incredible. When daylight shortens, these signals around the vital daily hormones cortisol, and for cortisol, think my morning alertness hormone, and melatonin, think my evening sleepiness hormone, these hormonal levels shift. Bright morning light is critical to the human machine because it hits the back of your eye, the retina, and signals to the suprachiasmatic nucleus, nice word, but SCN, a little pocket of cells in the brain. It says the day is here. And what that does is it shuts down your body's production of that sleepy hormone melatonin. And within about 30 to 60 minutes of encountering that light, the pineal gland in your brain has stopped producing melatonin. So with less light, that off switch for sleepiness is weaker or delayed. And that might also mean this melatonin, which is great in the evening, but I do not want it in the morning, but it will linger, and it will linger later into the morning. And this could cause that grogginess, that difficulty waking up, and what we can call sleep inertia. Beyond the impact of this lack of light in the morning on our 24-hour clock, we've got to remember that light is a critical component for the human machine to make vitamin D. Energy is everything. And every week on the Energy Equation, we'll give you the tools to boost yours. Tap follow now and join the community learning how to eat, sleep, and live for more energy. Now, back to the episode. Now, vitamin D is more of a hormone than a vitamin and has a range of incredibly important processes throughout the body. One of those jobs is that vitamin D helps regulate some of the enzymes, these chemical messengers in the body that produce serotonin. Now, we've probably heard of serotonin before. It's a neurotransmitter largely operating in our brain, and it's linked with mood, motivation, and calm focus. And in the morning, serotonin activity normally rises alongside that positive hormone cortisol to support alertness and positivity, but not if there's no natural light and not if there's low vitamin D. With low vitamin D, serotonin signaling could be weaker, and this could contribute to low mood, irritability, or that sense of flat emotions across waking. Vitamin D doesn't stop there. This hormone produced by sunlight plays a further role in reducing unwanted inflammation, something we speak about a lot on the energy equation. And what we see is with low sunlight and low vitamin D, we see raised levels of inflammatory markers that are associated, again, with morning fatigue and low motivation. In short, you need light, and you need it first thing in the morning to create this entire cascade of hormones and neurotransmitters that bring us energy. Now let's think about this in the real world. You might wake up feeling heavy, like your limbs have extra weight. You might get that classic 3 p.m. slump, and it might feel deeper than usual. You're not just tired now, but you're drained, you're slower, brain a little fuzzy. We see motivation change, it plummets. Tasks you usually enjoy now feel like you're wading through mud. You might be noticing here brain fog, that sense of slower thinking. It's harder to concentrate, harder to make decisions, or to keep that creative, productive flow going. From a food point of view, you crave carbs, you crave sugar, you want comfort foods. Your body's actually trying to stimulate the serotonin that should be there, but isn't. Emotionally, we might see a change, that more irritability. You might be withdrawn, you might feel less social, which when we look at that later is counterintuitive to boosting energy at this time of year. So here's a framing. Let's imagine your internal battery is draining 20% faster than usual in November, and that's not a bad image. You might not notice that on day one, but by week 3, that invisible energy deficit is starting to show up. And because many of us dismiss it as this is normal November fatigue, we possibly undertreat it. We don't try to solve it. But this episode is your advanced radar. Detect this early, intervene before it grows, and change your entire winter period. So what are the signals, those internal alarms that say this energy dip is more than just a bit of boredom or something to do with other circumstance? How are you going to spot symptoms of seasonal affective disorder? So let's remind ourselves of the red flags to watch. You don't need all of these to classify. A cluster, though, is enough to raise concern. Have you got a persistent fatigue? So you're not just tired after work, you are bone weary. You know that feeling. Are you now oversleeping? We know we want that somewhere between 7 and 9 hours, but are you wanting more than that? Are you wanting 9 to 10 hours and still waking relatively unrefreshed? Or conversely, as these things can be, you might now have trouble sleeping, moving into insomnia. Have you seen a real change in your food cravings? Again, especially for carbs. You want that croissant, you want that bread, you want that donut. And potentially a weight gain that comes from those foods being richer in calories than our body naturally anticipates. Are you withdrawing from social events, maybe without noticing? A cancelled plan here, avoiding a person over there? Are you slowly isolating yourself because you don't feel you've got the energy to put up that conversation? Is there a loss in those hobbies and things you enjoy? The things you used to do during the summer, where are they now in the winter? Where is the you time? And all of this again, is it paired with slower thinking? It shouldn't be. Is your concentration to solve tasks diminishing? Are you procrastinating? Everything's taking more time than it should. From a mood point of view, the big word we hear is irritability. Everything gets on your nerves, low patience. That's a classic sign. And that low level of heaviness or sadness that just doesn't lift. In significant cases of seasonal affective disorder, we'll see hopelessness, that negative self-talk and dark thoughts. And of course, if you experience any thoughts of self-harm, you must seek help immediately. A useful framing here is it's not just feeling a bit off. It really is a shift from your baseline, and you're losing momentum day by day. And if you pick that up early, that's your cue to act. Now, if those things are connecting with you, and with all those things considered, then it is important we take action. And we're going to give you a roadmap of things you can consider, But the first thing you must do, if you're seeing those symptoms, particularly clusters, pop to your GP to chat them through. Those symptoms are always a sign from your body that it wants you to change something. And we don't want to ignore those symptoms and ignore that early feedback sign. So we always want to start with our GP as the best first stop. But beyond that external support, which is brilliant, how do we fight back? How do we push energy upward again at this time when everything is going downhill? I've spent years helping people understand what really fuels their energy. And when it comes to daily nutrition, Vitals by Heights is where I start. Most of us still fall short on those key nutrients that support energy, focus, and mood. And that's where Vitals comes in. This is what a modern multivitamin should be. It's advanced, it's absorbable, and it's actually effective. It includes not just the basics, but 20 essential nutrients, including omega-3s and B vitamins, which are vital for brain health and energy metabolism. What sets it apart and why I love it is the science. It's formulated by doctors and dietitians, and it's backed by thousands of studies. It's clinically proven to work. It's built for long-term impact, not just short-term spikes. And as someone who reads the research and feels the results, I believe deeply in this. In fact, I believe in this product so much, I've joined the Heights team as their Chief Energy Officer because I believe they're setting a new standard in supplementation. If you're ready to kickstart your energy journey, start with Vitals. Get 20% off your first month at heights.com/EE or use the code EE20 at checkout. Here's a 60-second thought. We often think of energy as something we can add: more coffee, better nutrition, another workout. But the truth is, you can't create energy without recovery. And recovery starts with sleep. Sleep is one of the biggest drivers of your energy system. It's when your body restores cells, balances hormones, and resets your nervous system. Without quality sleep, everything from focus to motivation and physical performance starts to dip. That's why Simba have focused on the science of sleep. Using data from over 10 million sleepers, they've engineered mattresses and bedding designed to help you recover properly. Their hybrid mattresses combine AeroCoil springs and SimbaTex foam to support your body, keep you cool, and reduce partner movement. Simba have won over 100 sleep awards, including 6 Which Best Buys, and they offer a 200-night trial, a 10-year guarantee, and next-day delivery. Head to simbasleep.com/energy equation to see how Simba can help you power up through better sleep. So here's the good part. There are tools within our toolkit. Now, not everything works for everyone, but the goal here, as ever, is to stack small habits that are just going to shift your light inward. And we're going to start with that. Light. Light exposure and light therapy sits at the heart of this season. Somehow, we need to see, can you get 20 to 30 minutes of natural light early in your day? Now, ideally, that is within the first hour of waking. And realistically, human beings weren't designed to wake up at the same time all through the seasons, so that creates a challenge. If you're waking up hours before natural sunlight comes up, then we might use something called a SAD light. It's a Seasonal Affective Disorder light. And this is a light box that generates a particular volume of light, 10,000 lux, which blasts straight into your eyeball, goes to the retina for 20 or 30 minutes, and it brings about the cascade of hormonal effects that sunlight does. There's actually some modern inventions that mean instead of sitting next to a light box, you never look directly at it, you just have it at a slight angle to your eyes, but you can have a pair of glasses that you wear that pump that daylight straight into your eyeball, and you can go about making your breakfast and doing all the things you have to do. This form of light therapy can prove an absolute salvation to those who are starved of light and just can't get the hormones working in the way they do through those seasonal summer months. Light is everywhere. Can we think about the lights in our home? There's now things called full spectrum bulbs that you can put into your workplace and into your home. And these bulbs are mimicking the sunlight frequencies that trigger this range of biological benefits. So these daylight enhanced bulbs are a brilliant thing to bring the sun into your home, despite the fact it's not coming up for another couple of hours. Beyond sunlight, we've got to think about movement and ideally moving outside. Even 10 to 20 minutes walking outside, even on a cloudy day, sends an array of positive signals to your brain. It's a wonderful time to get outdoors around midday because that's when light is strongest. That old phrase, mad dogs and Englishmen go out in the midday sun, is a problem for summer months, but a benefit in winter months. So midday is absolutely right to work on. And that first thing in the morning, can we get movement? Could that be light resistance or strength work? Or could it be some light cardiorespiratory exercise? Movement is stimulus. And interestingly, that movement, that exercise, directly increases serotonin, the hormone that is struggling to be made at the right volumes without as much light. If we get more movement, we also make more cortisol, which is the hormone we want raised in the morning, and this gives us our get up and go. As ever, with all things energy equation, exercise and movement are key to generating more energy on so many levels. If you're someone who's using a wearable or a step counter, try plotting your outdoor steps or your minutes spent moving each day and correlate that with your mood each day. I think you might start to spot your own early warning system for symptoms of SAD. Is there a correlation? Low movement levels, low mood levels. Often there is. When we think about sleep, sleep is an incredible weapon for energy and it's disrupted at this time of year. The fulcrum, the key to good sleep, is that consistent wake and bedtimes, even on weekends. Maybe with an hour's bandwidth at the weekends, but trying to be as consistent as possible. The hormones that support your energy, that cortisol, that melatonin, they love a set rhythm. So investing in time that really drives a consistent sleep and wake time is really the number one rule of getting good restful sleep, which we need for energy. From a light point of view, we love that light in the morning, but we don't love it so much in the evening. The science is growing to say we need to dim lights in the evening and reduce screen time or any devices that give blue light, ideally 1 hour before bed latest. Yes, you could use blue light filters on the device or even wear blue light blocking glasses. We see anecdotally great evidence that those are helping people. But principally, can we build in that digital hard stop? Because your brain gets confused if there's light at a time when it expects darkness. Beyond those traditional modalities, can we think about caffeine and heavy meals? Both of these are counterintuitive to good quality sleep. Think stopping caffeine after lunch, ideally at this time of year. I know that feels tough, but it's valuable. And a heavy meal late in the evening is responding to that body's craving for carbohydrate. But as you digest that food, it raises the internal temperature in your body and then delays your ability to get into quality sleep. So think 2 hours, 90 minutes from last meal before bed, ideally. When we're thinking about consistent sleep and wake time, consider anchor sleep. And what this really means is you're going to fix, like an anchor, your wake time, even if your sleep time or bedtime shifts a little bit. So if you're knackered, you can go to sleep a little earlier, or if you're not tired at all, go to bed a little later. So judge that on fatigue levels. But keeping that morning locked in and anchored wherever possible gives those hormones that drive energy the best chance to get into a rhythm. From a nutrition and supplemental point of view, it's about balanced eating. We've spoken with some incredible guests across the energy equation who all want you to focus on similar things. Protein. Protein has an incredibly important role on stabilizing blood glucose. Fiber, incredible role on stabilizing blood glucose. Diversity of vegetables, incredible role. All of these elements are strongly associated with delaying SAD. And actually, if we get quality protein, fiber, and diversity of vegetables, we can potentially suppress that increased appetite for carbohydrates and sweets, which crash our energy levels ultimately. When we think of our cravings for carbohydrate at this time of year, it's partly because the body wants to build the building block of serotonin. So serotonin, that neurotransmitter that's really important for positive mood. But to make serotonin, I need something called tryptophan, which is an amino acid that can only get into the brain when there's enough carbohydrate. So carbohydrate is a natural, evolved symptom of wanting to make more of the neurotransmitter serotonin, and so I crave more carbohydrate. It's simple. But the problem is the carbohydrates I find in the modern world, in my supermarket, in my shop, are generally not the good ones. These are sugary carbohydrates that might cause my blood glucose to rise more rapidly than any foods that my forefathers ate. And that change in blood glucose can now have the exact opposite effect of what I wanted on my energy. It's causing me now to feel sluggish and tired. So my body craved something to help it make more of the neurotransmitter that makes me feel good. But the food I've brought in to solve that problem has created a new problem in bouncing my blood glucose up and down too quickly, and that is a real problem for energy. It's really tricky. It's a bit of a trap. We also have to consider, again, vitamin D. You know I love it by now, but particularly in northern climates in winter, it's tough to make as much vitamin D as we would like without sunshine. Now, I don't know you. I don't know how dark your skin is. I don't know how much time you spend outside. So I can't give you a personalized nutrient recommendation. But I certainly take 1,000 international units of vitamin D3 every day, as do all of my family. And that's a sensible thing to look into on your own research. From a nutrient point of view, once we've got that good amount of protein, good amount of fiber, good amount of vegetables, not too many refined carbohydrates, plenty of vitamin D. We look at omega-3, one of those essential fatty acids generally found in fish oil. And there's evidence here that this supports mood, particularly around this seasonal affective disorder. Now, the genius of omega-3 is it can have a role in suppressing unwanted inflammation. And that will have a big role on fatigue, while simultaneously, brilliantly, improving the sensitivity of your brain to serotonin. So this is two brilliant elements at the heart of low mood. I'm going to reduce unwanted inflammation, which can challenge my energy, while simultaneously making the cells in my brain detect more serotonin. So that's a fantastic motivation for you to go out and hook some wild salmon out of your local waterway. That, as well as other strategies to get more omega-3 in your diet, would be a sensible thing to consider. A second reminder to be cautious with caffeine and stimulants. They definitely suppress sleep quality. We've seen that when we spoke about it earlier, but they may also worsen energy crashes. They're hiding how tired you actually are, and that's a false energy. And we know on the energy equation that when we pay down a false energy, it will come back with some other debt down the line. So let's try and avoid caffeine outside of energized situations earlier in the morning. We've also got to think a little bit about psychosocial tools. How do we bring in activities that just change that relationship between my mind and the world I'm living in? How do I break up the rigidity of my standard day? The best one is a short walk. It's brilliant. Or it could just be some stretches 5 minutes out of every hour. It could be as simple as opening a window. We have to break the pattern of being overtly locked in and being sedentary whilst we're locked in. Alongside that, I do love journaling. We heard Ben Earl talking about that, the England rugby player, as part of his psychological strategy. Or a mood check-in. Can you start to identify what days you feel more energized and less symptomatic and which days worse? And then can you correlate that with something you're doing? Every time I do X, I notice I feel good. But every time I do Y, I feel bad. Then you can start to steer yourself towards or away from those elements. And those elements might be people, it might be activities, it might be nutritional habits, but the more you build a journal of your mood and your behavior, the more you solve your individual version of SAD. From a social contact point of view, we know it's a time when people feel drawn to isolate themselves, but we know the power of connection is vital. Even a brief connection with a great friend can act as a huge mood boost and a catalyst to other healthy behaviors. Can we structure a day around seeing people that we know bring us good energy and get them in our diary, not start removing them from? From a pure structuring of the day perspective, can we start to think about our day from an energy point of view and say, can I put those higher energy tasks earlier in the day if possible, when I've got that high cortisol and my body's revved up? If you've got more cortisol earlier in the day, cash in on it and set the energy tone for the rest of the day. But here again, journaling can work. When is your pocket of greatest energy, and how do you align the most complicated, demanding tasks in that window of time? That's a great way of securing improved mood throughout the rest of the day. We often track our steps, our sleep, our screen time when we're looking at our health, but we almost never check what's going on inside our body. And that's what got me hooked on Stride 1. It's not just another health test. It's a full system. It's DNA, it's gut microbiome, it's blood biomarkers, all connected to one platform. Because far too often, we test a marker and maybe we make some changes, but we don't come back to retest to see what worked. And even if we did retest, we might be missing key other markers that interact by not looking at the whole picture across bloods, DNA, and gut health. For me and many of my clients, Stride 1 gives answers I'd never seen before. You even get a biological age from real blood data, and you can see how that age changes over time. Every 6 months, they retest you. You speak to a dedicated health expert for a full consultation every 3 months, and they actually explain what's going on, not just drop data on you. It's proactive, personalized, and became a core part of how I understand my energy and manage my life. And if you want to run the exact same tests that we use on our guests, you can do that by heading to getstride.com/energy, or just check the link in the description. Modalities that bring calm are vital in this season. Mindfulness works. Breath work works. Short meditations work. When overwhelmed from this system and internal thinking gets on top of you, try deploying a couple of these techniques. They're brilliant little release valves that have a huge role upstream onto these neurotransmitters that affect our mood. If you've not tried them, they're brilliant ways to battle SAD. And of course, beyond all of this, there is professional help. We mentioned going to see your GP if needed, but cognitive behavioral therapy is fantastic. And there are forms of CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, tailored for seasonal affective disorder. So do go and explore that. But discuss medications, interventions with your doctor if these symptoms are severe and they stick about. So here's a mini challenge for you. For the next 7 days, try and pick one of the tools we've mentioned and try and commit to it. Let's go, for example, the 20-minute morning walk or using a light box. Just notice how that might shift your afternoon energy. And when you see that benefit, that's how you start to build that upward momentum to add more pieces to the puzzle and feel great throughout this season. Now let's think not just about ourselves, but also another group of people who are challenged during the season, and that's children. Children and adolescents aren't immune to this, and they face the exact same challenges we do. Their energy drains may show slightly differently, so we thought it's worthwhile for you to think, what should I be looking out for? And also, what can I do about it? So if you're seeing in your kids or children you care for uncharacteristic irritability, more than usual, particular mood swings, this might be seasonal. We might find children are a little more clingy in these winter months. Now that might sound great, but you know it's a bit of a challenge to get them exploring new social connections and doing the things that make them grow. They might be complaining of low energy or frequent fatigue. That's a potential sign. We might see a correlation into school performance. We might see that there's trouble concentrating, which is mismatched or misdiagnosed as something else. We might see the children dropping out of social scenarios or dropping out of play. It's just something where they want to incubate and spend time in their room gaming, for example. Changes in sleep, particularly again that oversleeping and difficulty waking, is that just a normal teenager or is this to do with the seasons? Appetite, suddenly craving snack after snack and ravenous for refined carbohydrate. Yes, there's a part of that around a growing individual, but it shouldn't be markedly different from where they were in the summer. Frequent statements like, I don't feel like doing anything, or I'm tired all the time, that may not be someone complaining without good reason. Light, outside activities, emotional connection, it's all changed. It's an emotional time being a young individual. We might see more tears or sulking, but that might be due to the seasons. Kids often express through their behavior. This energy drain might look different to adults. We might call it laziness. We might call it defiance. We might call it moodiness, not necessarily sadness. But it's the same thing, coming from the same triggers with the same solutions. So what are some things that if you are thinking about a child or you're a caregiver, you might want to put onto the menu? Well, it's morning light again. Morning light is the same trigger for every human on the planet. It's a vital part of our biological cascade. So that morning light and outdoor time sits at the heart of this. Can you now walk to school or spend 10 minutes outside early? Unless it is a monsoon, can you get a walk in that morning experience first thing every day? We also want to get people involved in play and movement through play. Unstructured play outdoors after school is a brilliant antidote to the sedentary hangover. Lock your children outside with a stick and a hoop and see what happens. Now, I say that without any legal responsibility, but you get the idea. Can we go back to outdoor play and see what impact that has on sleep and first morning energy? And as much as that's a silly example, something like that is going to work. But what about the light in those children's rooms? Again, can we think about full spectrum bulbs, particularly earlier in the day, particularly in study spaces? But be careful to drop those lights in the last hour, hour and a half before bed. We don't want children going to bed in a room that looks like Blackpool Pier. That's not what we're after. And routine and structure matter here as much as it does for adults. That consistent bedtime, consistent wake time, and we must see how we can limit screens before bed. Yes, for the light, but 2 for the stimulus. Both of these are counterintuitive to a young mind that needs to rest. From a dietary point of view, it's about balanced meals. We've just got to be careful on the heavy sugar processed snacks. And can we avoid that sugary pudding after the late evening meal? It's not the right time. Those treats, if they must come, should come after activity or earlier in the day. And let's do those emotional check-ins. Let's ask gentle phrases like, how's your energy today? Or what today felt hard? Let's not chastise or judge or call laziness. This could be an absence of light and dark. This could be a physiological challenge expressing as behavior. And with all these things, it's not about having a checklist. It's about modeling the tools. When Parents use things like first morning light, a first morning walk, consistent sleep and wake rhythm, hard stop on light, hard stop on tech. Kids will see this as normal. If we're not modeling these behaviors, it's very difficult to ask others to walk in the steps that we're not leaving. As with all things, we need nuance, and there is a caveat here to note. Some kids will have overlapping conditions, think attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, anxiety, etc. But when seasonal pattern disorders overlap, meaning there's worsening symptoms in the winter, they're better in the summer, that's a clue that some of these things may prove part of an integrated solution that's well worth exploring. So the foundations of seasonal affective disorder and winter blues are the foundations. But we're at the bleeding edge of science here. So here are 4 novel considerations for some of you that have tried all those big pieces, but still feel some symptoms from the challenge of the season. What about cold exposure and a rewarming ritual? We've seen the rise of cold, we talk about it a lot, but cold showers, ice baths, or a brisk outdoors walk in the cold could trigger a surge of neurotransmitters, which can elevate mood for hours. If we pair those cold exposures with a rewarm ritual, now I love a sauna, but that could be a hot tea, it could be a bath, it could be a cozy blanket. That reinforces some reward circuitry and builds resilience, both of which can improve mood state in this challenging season. The second area is to trick our body that it's in nature. We can do this with aromatherapy. We're seeing citrus or pine oils have an impact on increasing serotonin activity. Why? Because your brain will think you are outside in nature where it is happy and content, this biophilia, human's connection with nature. And we get the same impact if we do some kind of virtual nature immersion. If I believe through seeing a nature scene or even a fake plant that I'm outside, I start to produce the neurotransmitters of calm. I start to move my mood into an elevated state. So fundamentally, believing through scent and through sight that I'm in nature brings some of the benefits of actually being in nature. Isn't that brilliant? And then at the extreme end of the spectrum, there's things like negative ion exposure. It's a bit left of field, but growing. We know that when people are around high negative ion volumes, like those produced near waterfalls or during intense storms, that actually reduces depressive symptoms, particularly in seasonal affective disorder. So it could be one for the future, this, because you might not be able to instantly access a waterfall. But we are seeing things like negative ion generators move into indoor spaces for winter months. Food for thought. So here's where we land. The season will shift, but your response to that doesn't have to be passive. You can tune into your energy systems in a different way. You've heard the signals to watch out for and to be kind to, not just for you, but also for children. Your next step is to experiment. Choose one of the tools this week, whether that's first morning light as a habit, or daily outdoors walks, or getting out at midday, or a tweak in your sleep routine. But just see how that shifts your November, and you can play it through the entire winter. Now it's time for community questions.
Are there any benefits to using sunbeds where staving off SAD is concerned?
Oh, that's a technical question. A sunbed. What's interesting about sunbeds is that they unequivocally cause some damage to the skin. So from a inflammation point of view, from a potential accelerated aging point of view, they're not something we would generally advocate. If someone is keen to get into something that looks like a sunbed, we're seeing an increasing application of red light. And in fact, what used to be a lot of sunbeds are now being repurposed to red light therapy. And red light therapy is almost a bit of an antidote to the volume of blue light. So blue light, think the sunlight that's crucial in the morning to reset that natural circadian rhythm. Red light is what we really want to target in the early evening hours that mimics dusk and plays a role in improving melatonin production and transitioning into sleep. So we want light, but we don't want sunbed light. We'd rather have some kind of blue light stimulus. And if we're going to lie in something, then lying in a red light bed in early evening would be a really sensible strategy to optimize sleep onset, quality melatonin, and better energy the following day.
If you were recommending someone to try one tool from today's episode, so light therapy, outdoor walks, sleep routine, nutrition shifts, which one do you pick first?
I would always go to a morning walk outside. It's an extraordinary thing. For all the intelligent biohacking, supplements, technologies, medical interventions, it's something we've disconnected from. I know when I work with those who walk dogs in the morning or do have to do a school run, when they do it, they feel markedly different to when they don't. And we can lose sight of the wood for the trees in doing complicated things before the basics. If we combine first morning light and basic movement with some form of access to nature, ideally with a friend, you've got something that's very hard to replicate even in advanced pharmaceutical medicine. So start with the basics, consistent morning time, waking, and then going for a walk in whatever sunlight there is. That'll be a rock star move.
If you're an early morning commuter, and at the moment it's dark when you get up, it's dark when you leave, it's dark when you get home, it's dark when you go to bed, would a light box or some kind of technology like that help me to top up my sort of happiness throughout the day?
It's a great question, and the science seems to suggest yes. So SAD lights or light boxes positioned to the side of people's desk do seem to have a role in alleviating some of the symptoms of seasonal affective disorder. As mentioned in the pod, there are actually glasses you can wear now that send that light directly into your eyeball whilst you're wandering around. So you no longer need to be in a static position with this bright light just to the side of you. In certain clinical cases, we see light therapy being used alongside psychotherapy as a major part of improving the impact or decreasing the symptoms, I should say, of seasonal affective disorder. So this silly thing, light, is actually really the master key to your entire 24-hour rhythm. And if you're not getting it naturally, using something artificial to mimic that sunshine is a brilliant and worthwhile exploration.
Do you track your mood and energy in the winter? And if so, what has worked best for you?
That's a great question. I don't actually. I don't feel a huge personal shift, but I've got lots of the habits that work against SAD as part of my natural routine. So I do have some deliberate interventions that bring natural light artificially during the winter months. I do get first morning walks, and I do make sure I mitigate caffeine and alcohol early afternoon. So potentially because I've embedded some of these habits as part of my normal winter toolkit, I don't see a huge drop off. I'd say the one thing I'm cautious with is social interactions. And I would keep an eye on my physiological battery. And when it's low, I would decrease my social engagements. And that's because even though I might seem extroverted in many behaviors, I restore energy in isolation. So knowing that, it often means that if I'm a little tired physiologically, bit too much exercise, bit too much work, not enough sleep, then cancelling that social event actually will uplift me more than going. So it's finding our own natural blend of when you get elevated from others and when you need to retreat into solitude. And that's something that I always work on, but keep an eye between the physical data and my diary. But it's a lovely question. Thank you for asking me.
What should somebody do if they think they might have seasonal affective disorder but aren't sure?
Like all things, when we're looking at a potential disorder, it's great to put a name to it. I do think there's always great value in exploring this with your physician or GP and just making sure that it's not actually something else, or if it is a significant mood disorder, there might be a traditional pathway you should jump onto. Now, that doesn't mean you wait for them to solve it. So all the actions we've spoken about during the podcast, from first morning light to social connection, to carbohydrate management, to caffeine management, are all deeply relevant. And they will be a good GP. They'll be signposting you back to those things anyway, even if there's a need for something like medication to support. So fundamentally, we don't ever do medicine or lifestyle. We do both together. But if you're feeling like there is a significant change in how you feel, your energy, your mood, always explore that with a healthcare professional, but run all these behaviors alongside it. And that combined approach will bring benefit one way or another. Thank you for joining me. If this episode resonates with you, please pass it on. I'm Oli. See you next time.